This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, and today is my special guest. I got Brett Sawyer, former tag team partners with Mad Dog. Buzz Sawyer has held lots of titles in the Pacific Northwest, Florida Championship Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, many other places. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Love West Virginia. Just moved and doing okay. How about yourself?
Not doing too bad. Where did you move from?
Texas. Nowadays, it's a tits and ass and a Johnny Carson show. I can barely watch pro wrestling in WWE because it's got girls involved, and you watch an hour show, you might see 15 minutes worth of wrestling. And in the 79, when I broke in pro wrestling, I was a referee at first, and then Ricky Steamboat, Matt Bourne, and my brother Buzz Sawyer trained me for 9 months. And then I went to Portland, Oregon for 6 years, and went to Atlanta, Florida, Japan, and traveled all over the world. And I enjoy pro wrestling. A lot of promoters are different than other ones, but Don Owens in Portland, Oregon was probably the most honest promoter I ever worked for. The most crooked promoter I ever worked for was Bill Watts. But life goes on.
Why do you say that about Bill Watts?
Yeah, he's just a crooked promoter. He had a sold out arena one night, and he gave me 1,500, and he gave my brother $3,000. And I asked him, well, we both went out there as a tag team. Why'd he get $3,000? You gave me 1,500. And I just told him, I'm done. He goes, oh, you got to put a 2-week notice in. Well, when you do that, they beat you every night. So I just left that day and never talked to him again. So it's not like I really needed it, that's for sure.
How was your training itself for pro wrestling with your brother training you and Steamboat?
Well, it was a lot different. It was a lot harder. I walked in one day, they had paper bags in each corner of the ring, and I asked my brother Bruce or Buzz Sawyer, I was like, what's all the bags in each corner for? He goes, well, you're getting a little cocky, so you're going to puke in every bag today. So I did 100 drop kicks, 100 hip tosses, 100 back drops, and I was puking in between. And it taught me a big lesson, and I was getting a little cocky. So that was a good wake-up call. And it was hell training, but it made me a better man, that's for sure. So, and staying very healthy helps.
How was the Pacific Northwest territory for you? You always hear that they paid really well.
Yeah, they did. And Don Owens liked me a lot. So every time Flair came in, he would stick me with Flair. And Rocky Johnson, I was his tag team partner for a year and a half. And he was always complaining, why do you let Hacksaw, because that's what they called me in Oregon, was Hacksaw Sawyer. Because when I went there, I didn't want nobody to think I was hanging on my brother's coattail. So I produced and performed and did very well, and would go back and forth to Atlanta. And then my brother would come into Portland and we would work angles, and it was nice. I loved Portland, Oregon. It was the best years of my life for sure.
Was Jesse Barr around Portland at that time?
Sure was. His dad, Sandy Barr, was the referee. His son was in and out. Don Owens didn't really care for him too much because he was a little arrogant. I thought he was nice, but when you talk to a promoter, you can't talk to him like dog shit. You got to have a little respect for him. And some guys just do what they want to do, and that's not the right way to do it.
How was wrestling against the Road Warriors?
Well, they broke my wrist once, and then Buzz got him in the. We was in the dressing room, and they was apologizing, and I told them to their face they did it on purpose. And Buzz told him, he says, if you ever hurt my brother again, I'll break your neck. And every time I got in the ring with them, they was like gold. They barely hit me. They sold for me. And they respected me a lot more because I stood up to their asses. And I says, you broke my wrist on purpose. I was like, how hard is it to drop a knee on somebody's wrist? But they're both passed now, so I hope they rest in peace.
Would that have been one of the highest money-making feuds you were a part of when you were feuding with the Road Warriors?
Oh, yeah. We sold out every arena for 2 years working an angle with them. Made a lot of money. By that time, Ted Turner had bought that radio or TV station, and he ran things a little different, and his sons worked for him. And funny thing is, the Sheik he didn't know that was his 2 sons, and he was making fun of Ted Turner because he's got a little tiss to his voice, like. And he called him, he said he talks like a gay person. And then I seen his son turn the TV off and walked and got his dad, and his dad came back and fired him right on the spot. So you never know who's around. So
how was the Sheik? I know he was part of that program for some reason that you guys did with the Road Warriors. I saw the promo.
He was okay. He's back then I was young, but I never had a problem with the Sheik, to be honest with you. He was always real nice to me, but a lot of guys complained that he was stiff. But like I said earlier, it's not ballet, and if you can't stand a few tough punches, which can be accidents when your adrenaline gets flowing like it does, and it happens. So you gotta forget it sometimes. But when somebody breaks your wrist on purpose, it makes you think a lot different.
Was it Ole Anderson booking Atlanta at that time when you were there?
When I first went there, Buzz was booking, and Bob Armstrong, and then Ole Anderson took over, and he did a hell of a job. Ole Anderson, he's a very smart man. He knew how to make money and draw money and work angles, and I got a lot of respect for him because he helped me a lot too. And he gave me a nice push under Brett Wayne, because I went there for a year before they knew me and Buzz were brothers. And that helped the angle a lot. And
you were also in WCW in '91 for a little while too. Why was that such a short run?
Well, I didn't like, I can't think of his name, but he's a booker. He had black hair. If I heard it, I'd know it. But I just didn't get along with the booker at all, and neither did my brother. And then I went back to Florida Championship Wrestling, and then the next year my brother passed away, and that was 1992, and from steroids and cocaine, his heart blew up. And a lot of those guys in the early 80s was doing coke, and I even did some. Haven't touched it since 1992 and missed a bit either. But a lot of guys will get on here and talk about other wrestlers. That's easy to do, but to get on here and try not to knock nobody, it's hard because there's a lot of people I could knock, but I'm not going to because they're just ignorant. For somebody who's been dead 30 years and you want to talk shit about them, that's ridiculous. That's just the way I see it. And I'm his brother, so I know pretty much everything Buzz did. So he liked the Road Warriors. Well, when they came in and Oli was working, he made me and Buzz train them because they wasn't trained worth a shit. And they didn't know how to call high spots. And they were green as a cucumber when they got in there. But they made a good name for themselves. And the first one that died, he died from eating somas. It's a muscle relaxer. And your heart's a muscle. So that's how he died. And drinking on top of it didn't help. You see in the wrestling world how people die so quick. It's because they drink alcohol and eat pain medicine. That just don't work together at all. And we all did it. And then they want to get on here and mention certain people. But usually if somebody's talking bad about another wrestler, they got problems themselves, I think. I'm very happy.
How did you get along with Mr. Wrestling 2?
I didn't get along with him at all, to be honest with you. Wrestling 2 seemed like a nice guy, but he wasn't. He was a very arrogant. He talked a lot of BS, and he couldn't produce or draw a crowd for nothing. And he thought his gimmick was over like $1 billion, and it wasn't. I didn't get along with him at all. He's one of the few that I just didn't. He didn't like me because I was young. I broke into business. I was wrestling at 17, and he just didn't like that. And I was taught well and right. And then when I did referee, when I first broke into business, it helped me a lot. When other guys was calling high spots, some of them would yell at the crowd and they would call a high spot in Carney, like they say in pro wrestling, like you're going to do a backdrop. Yizu, Gizoin, Tizu, Bizik, Drizop, Kizik. You talk Carney and the people don't know you're calling a high spot. So that was pretty cool. And then a lot of guys get them to their ear. It's just, they all called it different. And I learned a lot from that. And I enjoyed it, or I wouldn't have did it for 35 years. But my body's paying for it now.
You always hear that Buzz was one of the toughest wrestlers and that he was a good amateur wrestler. What exactly was his amateur background, and where did this reputation come from? He just didn't take shit from anybody, I guess.
He didn't take shit from nobody. Yeah, you got that right. He's Buzz. I don't think nobody that I know in pro wrestling could have kicked his ass, because he could have went to the Olympics in amateur wrestling. When he was in 9th grade, he was wrestling 12th graders, pinning them in 30 seconds. And he just loved pro wrestling. And then he got me in, and they all three trained me. And boy, I think they had fun training me because they put me through hell, but it made me a better man and understand the business much more. That's for sure.
How did you get along with Matt Bourne?
Me and Matt, we got in a couple fights, and the guys broke it up. I got along with him, but we had a couple of feuds at the beginning, and he would just talk shit and then not think nothing of it. But when somebody's talking shit about you, you take that offensively, and I did. And that's why we'd gotten in a couple fights. And but then we became good friends, and he would tag with my brother occasionally, and he was a good guy. He died in 2014. Same thing, drug overdose. His dad he wrestled. He was wrestling back in the early 80s, and he had to be in his 70s or late 60s. But life goes on. Don't stop for nobody.
There's a fan on here that would like to know how severe Buzz's wrist and hand injuries were, because he says it was pretty bad.
They were very bad because he would always dive off the top ropes, and a couple of times he broke his wrist, and he would just roll out of the ring and hold it, and then get dressed and go to the doctor and get a cast put on. It happened 3 or 4 times to him, so I'm sure people had to notice it.
You mentioned that you wrestled Ric Flair a bunch of times in the Pacific Northwest. How were those matches, and what was he like behind the scenes to be around?
He was a great guy, had an easygoing attitude, I thought. Very humble, very down to earth. One hell of a worker. We did a 1-hour Broadway. Then he put me over 5 times in a 30-day period. And he told me, he goes, well, we had the referee check us, and we got face to face. And he goes, well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm sure your brother would be proud of you. And I said, yeah. And we were in the ring, and he says, we're going to go for an hour. You think you can do it? I was like, oh, yeah. And we did. We went for an hour, and he was a great guy. He helped guys. He would talk to you and tell you what you wasn't doing right. A lot of guys didn't want to listen to him, but I did, because of the money he's made in his life. And he's made a few mistakes with taxes, but shit happens, I reckon.
With Arn, what was the heat over with Arn?
Arn just said he knocked Buzz's teeth out, and said he kicked Buzz's ass. And first of all, him and one other guy couldn't kick Buzz's ass, and he could pick any guy he wants. Buzz was just plain out one of a kind, unpredictable, and if you pissed him off, you definitely knew it. That's for sure. He didn't take no shit from promoters, from bookers, he did what he pretty much wanted to do. And not too many people would walk up to him and say a word. And to hear Arn Anderson talk all this bullshit about him, saying he was on cocaine. Well, I remember when Arn Anderson was on cocaine, but I didn't get on TV and tell the world like he did. But they always want to say Buzz was the only one doing the drugs. Well, if you look back and you read who died and how they die, well, about 70% of them died from drugs overdoses. And it was nobody's fault but themselves. They can't blame it on promoters or owners who own the companies. They got to blame it on themselves. Now, I went to rehab for 6 months and paid $60,000, or I'd be dead. I wouldn't have been talking today. And I'm just glad I went to that rehab for 6 months. Best $60,000 I ever spent.
What would have been the most you did in a day as far as drugs and survived? Because I know back in those days, people did a lot.
Yeah, in the early 80s, I hate to say it, but I'd say 90% of the wrestlers did drugs, at least. There's only one kid I knew that didn't do them, and that was Art Bar, and he didn't do them, but everybody else did. They did all kinds of Placidils. That's a horse. That's an elephant tranquilizer. They got red ones and blue ones, and the Quaaludes was out then, and it was bad. They were easy to get, and it's when it's in front of you, sometimes it takes a stronger man, but sometimes you just go ahead and do a big line and go out and wrestle. I just tell it like it is, and about it.
Yeah, there was fewer wrestlers that didn't do it than did, I think, back in those days.
Exactly. And they'll sit here and tell you about other guys that did it, but I'll tell you, like I told you earlier, yeah, I did cocaine, and I did a little bit of smoke pot and this and that, but back then it was meant. Look at it, Portland, Oregon nowadays. Pot's legal, cocaine's legal if you personal use. I mean, that's crazy. Whoever thought they would hear shit like that? I didn't.
I didn't even know coke was legal there, but pot's legal in Canada too, where I am.
Oh yeah, that's cool. But it's helped a lot of kids. My wife died from triple negative breast cancer in 2016, and I could smell pot when I'd go to the hospital, and the lady's like, "Oh, the kids are upstairs smoking pot." They would have 70 seizures a day if they didn't smoke pot. When these kids smoke pot, they would have 3 or 4 seizures a day. So that's why they call it medical marijuana.
There's a fan on here that wants to know what you think about today's wrestling, and he wants to know if you're still training wrestlers.
Yes, I'm getting ready to open up in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, right around the 5th, give or take a day. And yes, I'm still training them, and I enjoy doing it, and I beat anybody's price as long as it's not anybody's, but I've did a lot. I've trained a couple thousand guys. I just enjoy pro wrestling. It's a hobby for me nowadays to just train guys. I enjoy doing it. And who's going to make it after 6 weeks. If you definitely know. But it's a 6-month contract, $3,000, and you get out of it what you put into it. And that's about like anything in life.
There's a fan on here, Richard. He wants to know who gave you the bubblegum gimmick kid in the revival of the Florida Championship Wrestling promotion.
Well, there's this little story behind that. Dustin Rhodes didn't make grades to do pro football, and his dad, Dusty Rhodes, wanted him in pro football. Well, his dad wouldn't train him, so me and Steve Kern trained him. Then his dad got pissed at me because I trained him, and he was the booker, so he gave me the gimmick, the bubblegum kid. Well, yeah, I was a little pissed, but I took it and bit my tongue, and I made it into more than the bubblegum kid. I came out, they gave me 2 big boxes of bubblegum to throw out. They said, well, don't throw it all out. The first can, I would throw all of it out. The second can, I would throw half of it out and then try to spread it out. That was Dusty Rhodes giving me that name because he was pissed off because Steve Kern and me, we both trained his son. And he didn't like it for the first couple years, but he got used to it. So,
how did you get along with Dusty? I mean, obviously Yeah.
Great. I got along with Dustin, his son. He lived with me for 6 months. And Dusty, I got along with. He just didn't like me and Steve training his son. But he got over it too after a while. And the bubblegum kid, it was sort of a joke on me, but I turned that around real quick. Yeah, I know he did that because I trained his son.
How did you get along with Kevin Sullivan, who's a good friend of mine?
Never had a problem. Now Kevin Sullivan could tell you all about Buzz. He's one of the few guys that Buzz liked. And if Kevin tell you something Buzz did, I would say he's probably 110% right, because Kevin was down to earth, quiet. He was a badass, and not too many guys messed with him or talk shit behind his back. I can tell you that. But
Really, I didn't know that about Kevin.
Oh yeah, he was one of a kind himself. Nice guy. Oh, if he liked you, he wouldn't give you his shirt off his back. He'd give you the skin.
Did you ever hear what actually happened with Eddie Graham committing suicide, since you were around Florida?
I know exactly what happened. What happened is Eddie Graham was losing the sportatorium in Florida. And the reason is they have something up there for younger kids, and he embezzled a couple $1 million from the state, who was helping out people who could barely get by, and he embezzled. It was called the Children's Club or something. Well, anyway, they charged him with embezzling a couple $1 million, and then he tried to get it off his son Mike, who had it. He was driving around a Mercedes. It was trimmed, every part of it was trimmed in gold. And he asked his son if he could borrow $2 million to get out of this trouble. And his son wouldn't loan him the money. And his dad went to the sportatorium, took a gun with him, shot himself in the mouth once. He dropped the gun, picked it back up, and shot himself the second time, and it killed him. And then Mike Graham killed himself about 4 years later. Him and his son and his wife had went to the same it was something with motorcycles up in Florida. They went to this motel one year, and then with Mike, his son, and his wife. Well, the next year, that Mike had already shot and killed himself. Well, his son went with his mother, and his mother come back from the store, and he'd killed himself. So Eddie killed himself. Then 3 or 4 years later, Mike killed himself. And then 3 years later, his son killed himself. Sad.
Definitely. You teamed with Chicky Star in Southwest Wrestling. I actually wrestled him before in Puerto Rico. How was that whole experience? I think you guys were champions.
Yeah, we tag team champions. And then when I went to Puerto Rico, I tagged with him over there. And I didn't like Puerto Rico a bit. That was the worst place I've been in my life. Yeah, because I was a heel in Puerto Rico, and they'd throw batteries and hit you in the damn head with it, and it was unreal. Yeah, but Chicky was a super nice guy. Yeah.
How was your pay in Puerto Rico? Did they screw you on your pay ever, or were they honest?
Well, me and Junkyard Dog was over there, and they wanted us to pay taxes in Puerto Rico. And I was like, I pay taxes in the United States. I ain't. And Jose, the one who stabbed what's his name and killed him?
Bruiser Brody?
Bruiser Brody, yeah. This guy, Jose, is the one that stabbed him 3 times. I had left the building, and we went to a bar. This is 30-some years ago, and he had stabbed him 3 times in the shower because he owned 10% of the company. and they wanted him to do a job, and he didn't want to do a job, and he had a percent in the company, he said, and Junkyard Dog seen it. He said he stabbed him 3 times and just walked away, and he fell to the ground, and he didn't give a shit about nothing. And they took him to jail. 2 hours later, he walked in the bar like nothing ever happened. It was crazy. I said, so anyway, when we told that promoter that we wasn't paying taxes, he goes, well, we'll put a kilo of cocaine in here and you guys will go to jail. And then we're like, we'll pay taxes. We'll pay taxes. So soon as Jose left the motel, I looked at Junkyard Dog. I said, I'm getting out of here tonight. He said, me too. So we snuck to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning and got on a plane, left a check behind and everything else, and flew back to the States. Then Jose called me 2 weeks later. Brett, come on back. I was going to give you a big push and this and that. And I told him how he treated me and this and that. And then he goes, I'll send you a plane ticket one way and you can come. I said, I never take a one-way ticket. It's either a round trip or nothing. He sent a one way and I just ripped it up.
There's a bunch of fans on here asking about Little Tokyo and Little Beaver, who I guess you had a match with. The little, I don't know what the hell we're supposed to call them these days, but I call them midgets.
Yeah, midgets. I had a match with midgets.
That's what people are saying. I don't remember that, but people seem to remember you wrestling those guys. Do you remember that?
Not midgets, no. We might have did a tag team with like me and 2 other midgets, and me against 2 midgets or something, but I don't even remember that. Where was this at?
They didn't say, but there was about 3 fans that asked that question. So maybe you guys, if you're still watching, let us know. For Bruiser Brody, did you know him personally before he passed?
Yes, I did. He's a real good friend of my brother's. Buzz's. Yeah, very nice guy, very down to earth, very humble for a big guy, and he got over like $1 million. He was a good heel.
You also feuded with the Midnight Express, I think, when you were in the Crockett's territory. How was that?
And they're very, you're talking about the blonde-headed guy, right?
I think it's Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey, or Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. There was 2 versions.
Okay, well, I trained Tommy Rogers, and he passed away a couple months before my wife did in 2016, and he was tagging with Bobby Eaton. They're not Bobby Eaton, Bobby. I forget. I think they went not the Midnight
Bobby
Express.
Fulton, the Fantastics, I think.
Yeah, that was it. The Fantastics. Who was the guy he trained with or wrestled
Bobby
with?
Fulton, I think.
Yeah, Bobby Fulton. Mm-hmm. I was in Oregon. Tommy was in Florida working at the mall. I told him to come on over or fly to Portland, Oregon, and I'll train him. And I did. And then he left and pretty much made it on his own. And when him and the Von Erichs went to Hawaii, Kevin Von Erich and him, the police said, well, Tommy beat up one policeman. He was looking at 5 years in prison. And first it was 10 years. Then I reckon he got it dropped to 5, but he decided to kill himself. So he had a bottle of wine, and they said that he had a bottle of 60 somas and there was 20 of them left. So he must have ate 40 of them in a 20-hour period, which was really the highest muscle relaxer you could ever get, because 2 or 3 of them make you seem like you drank a case of beer. So they were very, that's how it was. So he thought he was going to go to prison for 5 or 10 years. So he decided to OD, which that's the worst sin in the Bible. and I found it hard. And then nobody would get him back to the United States, so I opened up a GoFundMe on Facebook, and we got enough on there to $2,200 to get him back to the United States. And then I let his sister take it from there. But Tommy was in there with them. But to back up to get to what's that? The Midnight Express. Do I like those guys? To be honest with you, they're probably likable guys, but all I've ever heard them when they get on YouTube is knock people. And I just sat there and couldn't believe how they was knocking so many people when, to be honest with you, they act like they was the world tag team champions forever, but I don't know. I don't know why everybody gets on YouTube to knock people. I get on YouTube to talk and take up for my brother, and people want to knock me. They can knock me all they want, but they don't know what I've been through. I've lost my whole family to death. 4 brothers, a mother, a father, and then my wife. So life's short, that's for sure.
Did you know Gino Hernandez when you were in the Texas territory?
Yeah, Gino, real good. It's been a while since he's been there, though.
Yeah, what were your thoughts? Did you think he really just overdosed? And there's all these conspiracy theories out there now.
For who?
For Gino Hernandez.
You can't believe half of what you hear. So what? I mean, is that the way he died? Is it an overdose?
Supposedly a cocaine overdose, yeah.
Well, we did do some together, and but like you said, in the early 80s, it was not unheard of. It was everywhere, to be honest with you. That don't mean you had to go get it. And some guys did it all the time, and some guys did it occasionally, and some guys had to have it. I mean, there was 3 different ways to go about that. And really 4, not do it. But I don't know. When you're traveling a lot, we did a lot of traveling in Georgia and Florida and Oregon. Didn't do as much flying in Oregon. We did more anything under 300 miles, they'd make us fly, and anything under 300 miles, we would drive. But the best territory I'd ever been to was Atlanta and Portland, Oregon, for sure.
Do you have any stories about the Von Erichs?
Oh God, I got a lot. They was always huffing on gas. It's they have a big tank in their house, and you pull up, and they was always getting high as a kite. Oh my God, they're all dead except Kevin. He's still in Hawaii. The youngest one, I think he shot himself in the chest, and the rest of them pretty much OD'd. His dad, he was mean as hell. He was very, very mean. I seen him grab his boys and talk to them like a dog. But he made money, but he was a prick, that's for sure. I felt sorry for his kids, the way he treated them. It was unreal.
Did you ever wrestle any of the kids when you were in the Texas territory?
Well, the only one that was left to wrestle was Kevin, and he's semi-retired, pretty much like me. He told me he wouldn't wrestle again unless it was in Japan, and he's gotten his dad's estate in Texas, and it's unbelievable. It's worth a couple million. I don't know why he's got a place over in Hawaii, but he just must like Hawaii. I've been there a couple of times. It's nice, but it's not that nice. But he likes it, so that's all that counts, I reckon.
Did you ever meet Andre the Giant?
I tagged with him for 5 years. Well,
Oh,
you can
wow.
go on YouTube. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and pull it up. Brett Sawyer and Andre the Giant. Yeah. Nicest guy in pro wrestling. He died at 44 because his bones grew through his brain and and that's what killed him. Is his bones kept growing and growing and just wouldn't stop, and that's how he died.
Is it true he was very generous and would always buy dinner and stuff on the road?
Be honest with you, he was never like that with me. He's always very humble. He'd want to get if it was over 300 miles or under 300 miles, he'd want to get a case of Budweiser and 2 bottles of vodka. And by the time you get to that town, had it all gone. He could drink a lot, I can tell you that. But he was the nicest guy in the world he's the nicest wrestler I ever met, I can tell you that. And he broke my seat, and I told Don Owens, he was the promoter, and he was like, well, heck, go tell him to pay for it. I was like, you told me to drive him around, and I'm tagging with him. You go tell him. He was just joking with me, but he paid for it. But Andre, I thought, was super nice. He always calls people boss. And I asked him, why do you call everybody boss? He said, it's hard to remember everybody's name.
That's funny. Now, as far as Ken Shamrock, I understand your brother trained Ken Shamrock. Did you know him at all in those younger days?
Oh, yeah, I helped him train Kim Shamrock. I was flying in I was in Atlanta then, and he was in California, and I would fly in and out every other week. And he trained mostly Kim Shamrock, but he was a super nice guy, really down to earth. He had a short temper, but he was on a lot of juice. And but Buzz made him a millionaire, and he had 5 kids. I mean, he had a lot of kids. I couldn't believe how many kids he had. But he was a super nice guy too, and he did a lot of Ultimate Fighting.
Yeah. Did you ever hear about the story with him and the Nasty Boys?
I knew the Nasty Boys real good. We helped train them too.
Oh, wow. What's your thoughts on them?
They're crazy as hell. Brian Knobs, I'd go out drinking with him when I drank. And one night I called my wife and I said, come and get me. These guys are ready to go to jail. They'd walk up to people's table when they're sitting there with their wife or girlfriend and take their drinks and drink them and flip their tables over. I said, I'm getting the hell out of here. And sure enough, the next morning they're calling me. They're in jail. I knew they was going to go because they was just out of it. Yeah, they're funny guys if you know them like I know them. But if you didn't know them like I knew them, you'd probably think they were assholes. Because they could be assholes, definitely. I like both of them personally, but they've never flipped my table over or took a drink from me or my girl. That's for sure. But I think they're both retired now, and I don't know. They're both still living in Florida, so I reckon Brian Knobs married Greg the Hammer Valentine's wife's sister. Yeah.
Yeah. Knobs lost a lot of weight, then he went and put it all back on.
That's what I told a friend of mine. I says, you can lose all that weight like he did, but it's going to come right back on, and it did. he's so heavy now. I think that's how he'll pass away, as a heart attack, because he's way overweight.
There's been a lot of fans asking you if you've ever seen a UFO and your opinion on aliens. For whatever reason, they want to know.
Well, I have, to be honest with you. A lot of people laugh at me, but it's like the Mothman in West Virginia. I seen him when I was 10 years old. My mother owned a titty bar, and I was walking to it one day and seen him. I don't tell people because they look at you and think you're stupid, but I told a few people that, and they sort of understood it. But I don't go around telling people that anymore, just because it does sound stupid, but I did see him. So people I feel comfortable with, I'll say it, but people I don't feel comfortable with, I won't even bring it up.
Well, now the government's even admitting that UFOs are out there, so that's becoming a little bit more acceptable.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you just got to say what's on your mind, and it is what it is. And I definitely seen the Mothman, I can tell you that. And UFOs.
Where were the UFOs that you saw?
Well, I seen them in the Ohio River. I seen them in Florida Ocean. That's about the only two places. And the Mothman I seen here in Ohio, Canalga, Ohio. That's right beside Gallipolis. It's right over the bridge from West Virginia. That's where I'm living at now, is West Virginia. And I love it. It's much better than Texas, I can tell you that.
For the UFO, you said you saw one in Florida over the ocean. We always hear about UFOs in water, like there's some connection because they go underwater too. Do you have any theories on like what they could be doing underwater?
I be honest with you, it's crazy, but it seems like there's something under there they want. I don't know if they're going down there to eat or hide, or it's hard to say. I'll take the fifth on that one.
Now the Mothman, I don't know that much about it, but I've heard about it. What is that?
Oh, it's a big thing. It's a bird on steroids. That's a funny way to say it, but it scared the hell out of me when I was 10 years old. I can tell you that. And right after that, we moved to Florida because our house burnt down. But
and the bridge fell.
I seen the Silver Bridge fall in West Virginia. We was playing football. I heard this big, loud roaring, and a bridge was falling. It was Christmas time, and all these presents floating down the Ohio River, and then everybody's diving in to get presents and not worrying about people that was dying. I thought that was crazy as hell. But I've seen a lot in my life, that's for sure.
There's a fan that would like to know about the angle where Buzz came down to save you in Georgia and turned babyface.
Yeah, well, we worked that through the Road Warriors, let them attack me, and they attacked me, and then in the Omnis where we started the angle, they jumped me, then they both of them beat on me for about 3 minutes, and then Buzz came running down. I reckon the fans all thought he was going to jump on me too, but he beat the shit out of the Road Warriors, and they scooted. And then we did it on TV in Georgia, and it was just a little different, and it just turned into a 2-year of sold out arenas. So that's all that the promoters care about. That's for sure.
You had a lot of matches with Rip Oliver, who passed away a couple years ago. Any memories about him? He was really over in Portland.
Super nice guy, very humble. His son got into business. I've never met him, but I heard his son got into business, and he died about a year. Rip Oliver, he died about a year and 3 months ago. He'd been sick for a couple years, and I think he died of, I don't know what he died from, to be honest with you. But I got a couple calls when he did die, and people was talking to me on Facebook. But he was a super nice guy, very easygoing heel. He didn't whine. He just went out and did what he had to do and move on. I liked Rip Oliver for sure. He was a nice guy, that's for sure.
You spent some time in Japan too, I think, for New Japan Pro Wrestling. How was that experience over there?
I love going over there because they pay 10 times better than the United States. You go over there for 5 weeks, make 80 to 100 grand, and sometimes a little more. But you always had to go for at least 5 weeks. And then you can only go through customs with $9,999. So me and Buzz would take money on each other's back and around your legs and smuggle it back in. But nowadays they got dogs that smell money, so you can't do that no more. But we would try to send as much as we could home, but that was almost impossible for Buzz because he made a little more. But Japan was my favorite place for sure. Yeah.
Did the Mafia ever take you out for dinner over there?
Well, I tell you what, we had dinner with them, but we just accidentally, they all dressed in white, and they would ride the train over there, and the guy in the middle, they would get out and make a circle around him, the head guy in the Mafia in Japan, and they paid for me and Buzz's meal. Then a couple of them came over and talked to Buzz for a while. And there is a Mafia over there for sure, and they let you know it. Yeah.
Who were you wrestling over there? Because you always hear the Japanese will try and take advantage of Americans.
Oh, yeah. They tried to shoot on me and stuff, and I'm a pretty good amateur wrestler, too. And I would just shoot back. And then when I tagged Buzz, I said, fuck him up. And he did. And Buzz stretched him and he tapped out. And that wasn't the finish. But Buzz finished it a little quick. And when we got back in the dressing room, he got in a fight with the guy. Didn't last long. But yeah, it's hard over there. If out of 100% of pro wrestlers, only 20% ever make it to Japan. And the 20%, they got to be halfway decent workers or you wouldn't be going to Japan because they're stiff as hell over there. That's the only difference between Japan and America. They pay better and they're a lot stiffer. They make sure that they're stiff for sure. That's just the way they work, oh. So Buzz and them got along good.
When you were in Central States, did you ever wrestle Harley Race?
No. I was down there. I wrestled Marty Jannetty. He was one of my old tag team partners. But Harley Race, that's one guy I was in the dressing room with him. But I was usually a baby face, but when I went to Japan and out of the States, I would be a heel, turn heel anyway. And I like being a baby face better, that's for sure. The heel shit, just don't get it with me. But Buzz was one of the best, and he turned baby, but he didn't like baby, and I didn't like heel, so... But then he died at an early age. So they say the good die young. So I reckon it is what it is.
You mentioned that he beat up the Japanese guy after the match. Did that happen very often in the U.S.? No.
No, never. I mean, I've seen Buzz grab a couple guys just for them running their mouth, but he never got in a fight. But a lot of you could see a guy pacing. You know, he's working with Buzz on TV. Because when he gets on TV, he was stiff, and he told guys, he goes, well, if you ain't stiff on TV, you better be, because I'm going to be stiff. Because you got to figure there's hundreds of thousands of people watching Ted Turner's station, and you can't turn that camera. It don't have reverse on it. It just keeps rolling and rolling and filming. So if you mess up, you got to just keep on going. That's what they told me to do, and that's what I always did.
When you were telling the Undertaker story earlier, you were driving and it kind of cut out. I was wondering if you could give your version of the whole Undertaker training story that Undertaker told.
Okay, Buzz worked like you. For an example, when you train a guy to become a pro wrestler, you can't train him and then let him miss 4 or 5 payments and then keep training him. Because say I train you for 6 months and I ask you for $3,000, well, you could, if I let that 4 months slide by and I ain't collected no money and the guy's already knows 3/4 of what's going on, it ain't like you're selling them a car and you can go repo it. You got to have your money before you teach them everything. And a lot of guys would try to get over on you and, oh, I'll pay you next week, or I'll pay you next week, and keep putting that off. And you're just screwing yourself. It's much easier to get half down and let them make little payments, and it pays off much better.
So what happened? Did he really only train the Undertaker a couple times, or what was the version?
He trained the Undertaker 4 times, and the last time the Undertaker got cocky with one of the students and tried to stretch him. And Buzz jumped in the ring and told him, he says, you want to stretch somebody, stretch me. And then Buzz got on him, stretched him until he started crying like a little bitch. And he started crying. I about had a heart attack and never came back. And then after that, he says, oh, Buzz trained me once and ripped me off. That was so much bullshit. The Undertaker should have never stretched one of his students, because first of all, he didn't sign no waiver. And second of all, who's the Undertaker? He already thought he was famous before he even got famous. And to get a push in this business, it's all about the pencil. That's why it's got an eraser on one side and it's got ink on it. They can erase your name and make you a job boy real quick, or they can write your name and put you over every night. So I'd always tell them, oh, the eraser's going to get you. And nobody'd ever figure it out. And then finally one day Buzz explained it to him. And he says, well, you can get a push, but they can also take shit away from you too. But we never had that problem with promoters, because Buzz was very blunt with promoters and knew how to talk to them. And they respected him. They knew he was a badass. And like Manny Fernandez, Buzz took him down real quick. And I like Manny, but boy, is he got a loud mouth.
Yeah, a loud mouth, and if it's open, it's probably lying too, from what I've seen of him.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but I agree with you 100%. That's for sure. Yeah, big time.
There's a fan on here, Stevie TV, that wanted to know who was the biggest asshole you ever met in wrestling.
The big David Schultz. David Schultz. Biggest. Me and him got in a fight in the ring, and he don't know how to shoot worth his shit. So all I did was stretch him. And he's like, let me up, Brett. Let me up. I was like, you ever hit me like that again, mother? No, I ain't gonna cuss, but I said, you ever hit me like that again? I says, I'll break your neck. Then he started cussing and walking and talking. And he walked away talking. So I just let him keep walking. Yeah, he is the biggest asshole I ever met in my life. David Schultz. Yeah.
Sean, watching on here, says the Undertaker claimed he got Buzz's dogs. Was that true?
Hell no. Buzz had me and Buzz both then were living in Texas, and Buzz had Rottweilers, Bull Mastiffs. We had all kinds of dogs, and he didn't take Buzz's dogs. That's about like Arn Anderson saying he knocked Buzz's teeth out. That was from when he wrecked his Porsche. It hit the steering wheel and then knocked his one tooth out. And the way he talks, he knocked all of his teeth out. Just bullshit. I don't know why they want to talk to the dead like that, but they do.
Because they don't have to worry about retribution and they can just make stuff up.
Right. And that's why I was like, man, I'm about sick of all this bullshit. I'm going to have to put my 2 cents in. Because my brother was, me and him was like close as close can get.
Jason wants to know about your blade job in Portland. Did you do some crazy blade job in Portland?
Yes, sure did. I went to cut my head, and when I went to cut it this way, the Cuban assassin kicked me, and I went like that all the way to my temple. And that's why you'll see on YouTube a picture of me with my face covered with blood and on my chest covered with blood. It says the worst blade job ever. But it wasn't on purpose because I was just going to do a little snap. And when I had that razor right there, he kicked me and I just went like that. And I was bleeding like unbelievable. It says the worst blade job in pro wrestling, but I don't know. Maybe Dusty might beat it. He got juice. He'd cut his arm. He'd cut his shoulder. He'd cut his belly. I mean, it was crazy.
Sunset Moth wants to know who was the easiest wrestler for you to work with and who was the hardest in the ring.
The easiest would be Flair. And the hardest would be David Schultz. He didn't want to sell. He was a heel. He didn't ever want to sell. He just always wanted to be the king. And his body pretty much spoke for itself. He had pencil arms and he didn't put no time into working out or training or endurance, which is the 3 main things in pro wrestling. If you don't have endurance, you're screwed. So David Schultz would be the worst and Flair would be the easiest.
A few fans have asked about Bam Bam Bigelow. Did you know him?
Very good. Lived in Florida. I can't think of the name of that little town, but I like Bam Bam Bigelow. The first time I met him, I was heading to Japan, and he was new at the sort of green, but he always treated me nice, and him and Buzz got along. He had problems with a few other guys, but I don't get into other guys' problems like all these other idiots want to talk about dead people. I just try to think the best of somebody until they prove me wrong. And the Undertaker definitely did it. Now that he's got a little money, I don't know if he knows how to act or not. And Walt Disney bought Vince out, so they just got rid of 25 wrestlers about three that had major big contracts. They X'd them all out because Walt Disney World ain't going to pay him like Vince paid him. That's for sure. And by the end of the year, you'll see it when Walt Disney takes over, everything's going to change. And because I can't think of the guy's name that married Vince's daughter.
Triple H, Paul Levesque.
He just retired, right?
He only wrestles occasionally. I don't know if he's gonna wrestle again or not. He's in the office.
Yeah, exactly. He said he was busy in the office and he's making more money in the office. So I doubt he said he was going to retire from pro wrestling, but I would too if I was married to Vince McMahon's daughter. So
yeah, great politician. Who told you about this Disney information that Disney bought WWE? What you're saying?
Greg Valentine. And it was all over the news in Florida. Walt Disney bought WWE out in 2018 and gives them 2 years. And then that demic, whatever you want to call it, happened. So that slowed it down. But the end of this year, you'll see a big difference in Vince's show because Walt Disney will be doing it their way. And there'll be a lot of changes. Can't wait. Because I tell you, nowadays, it's a tits, ass, and Johnny Carson show. I cannot stand to watch WWE wrestling because out of an hour show, you might see a 15-minute match. And I think everybody would agree with that. I've had dozens and dozens of fans tell me, Brett, I loved wrestling when you did it in the early 80s, but nowadays it's all about tits and ass. I got everybody telling me that. What do you tell them? It's just the way Vince wants it, and it sells, I reckon. But Walt Disney ain't going to go that route, I don't think. But we'll find out. It's coming up. About 5 months left.
Buzz had a very short stint in WWE. Why was it so short?
He beat the shit out of Vince McMahon. That made it real short. He didn't like him. He screwed him on a payoff, and they got in an argument, which turned into a fight. And of course, Vince lost, and Buzz lost the job. But that wasn't a problem. Back then, there was 40-some territories you could go to. Nowadays, there's 5 territories.
Is that why you never got a WWE opportunity too? Because there was heat over that fight?
Big time. Yeah. But I really didn't care because everybody that, like Buddy Rose, he was in Oregon. He told me he didn't like it in WWE. And it is what it is. I think I had a hell of a run. 35 years even staying in pro wrestling. I know guys that didn't make it 7 years. I don't know how long Arn Anderson wrestled, but it wasn't too long, that's for sure. He got a run in WCW. He got a little push, and then he got a push with the Four Horsemen. After that, I can't think of much he did do.
No, they try and rewrite history like he was super over, but in reality, he wasn't.
Not a bit. Yeah. And that's just being honest. I mean, think about it. He always got jumped on somebody's shoulder to get a push. When you go into new territories, they either like you or don't, and you find out real quick. You can tell by the vibes.
Did you know Roddy Piper at all from the Portland territory?
Oh, I'll tell you a story. The first time I met Roddy, he came into Portland. He's like, Hack, come on with me. Me and your brother was good friends. I was like, oh, okay. So we went on a 280-mile ride. And I had a beer in my hand and I spilled it. And I was like, oh, it was in a rental car. And Roddy's like, don't worry about that, Hack. He's like, well, he grabbed the beer and opened it and poured it over the dashboard. He said, see, I don't give a shit. Spill all the beer you want. But he spilled it all over the top of the car just to make me feel comfortable. Yeah, Roddy, he even announced, he said, I'll die before I'm 61. And he predicted it. He did die before he was 61. And he's the nicest guy in the world, I think. If you can't get along with Roddy, you got problems.
For sure. Have you seen his daughter wrestle at all? She's getting into the business now.
I didn't know he had a daughter.
Yeah. Daughter. Yeah. Her name is Teal.
Teal. I have to look out for that.
There's a fan on here that is wondering what you think of this death match wrestling stuff.
Is what now?
There's a fan wondering what your opinion is of this death match wrestling where they use light tubes and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think it's the drizzling shits. It's out of control. Yeah, that's nothing to do with pro wrestling. And that's like, I understood about the Vince putting all these women in there and signing them on big contracts. And I don't know, his dad was like day and night. I met his dad once, nicest guy in the world compared to Vince. But Vince is a successful man and made a lot of money. One thing I don't agree, I'd seen his wife do an interview on CNN, and she said, well, my husband was cheating on me and I caught him. And she said, when I caught him with a man. And she said, I wish I'd have caught him with a woman. It wouldn't have made me feel so bad. But to hear that come from her on CNN, that was pretty funny. Pretty much telling the world her husband was gay. So
there's been rumors about Vince and Shawn, why Shawn Michaels got away with so much.
And why he's got such a big 25-year contract, because he's been down. He's given him a blowjob. Why would Vince sign a 25-year contract for him? Think about it. Because they had to be lovers. I'm guessing. Do I know for a fact? No. But from what his wife said and what I found out about that 25-year contract, Vince, I'd say, is gay. 100%.
What do you think about those rumors that were around forever with Pat Patterson and the Brooklyn Brawler? Why he had a job for so long?
Same thing, pretty much. You know, going down on somebody. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm just calling it the way I see it. And back then, I remember all those rumors going around, and I would say they're probably true. Do I know? No. But if I had to guess, why would they just give him that 25-year contract? Because those two were lovers. And after I found out through his wife that he was gay, that sort of, I don't know, that's sick. I don't understand it.
Did you ever meet the Ultimate Warrior at all?
Yeah, nice guy. I remember when he got the Hall of Fame, and then he died, a month later or something?
A couple days later. Literally a few days. 2 days later.
Oh, 2 days later. Okay. Yeah, I know he died early after he got that, but I didn't know it was 2 days. I thought it was 2 weeks or something. But yeah, he was a nice guy. I mean, just really down to earth. And I've seen some of his interviews about Hogan and stuff. And Hogan's a friend of mine, and don't have no problems with Hogan either. But those two had problems, and uh, Hogan is definitely over more than him. It's obvious because everybody's putting him over, and his new wife, if they've gotten married or not, she's a lawyer, and that's what she does. And now she's his lawyer, and if he goes to work for Vince one time, that's $1 million he gets. If he goes to work for Vince 2 times, every time Vince goes to work for him, he's supposed to pay him $1 million. So
I believe that. How
figure
do you
that
know
out.
Hogan? Was that from Florida? Like, how did you become friends with Hulk Hogan?
Hold on, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Now I can, yeah.
How did you become friends with Hulk Hogan? Was that from Florida?
Yeah, Knobs, he if Hogan needs something, Knobs will go get it for him, if you know what I mean. And Hogan will give Knobs some of what he got, and that's all. He ain't got to worry about nothing.
Yeah, I heard that they had a falling out, but who knows if that's true or not.
Well, it's possible, but I don't see it because they got along pretty good, and he did Hogan a lot of favors. But Knobs is like the weather; he's unpredictable. So Knobs could have did something, or who knows. I personally don't know if they get along right now or not. I know 3 years ago they used to get along great, but like you said, who knows? It's unpredictable.
The Ultimate Warrior certainly, before he died, said some stuff about Hogan and the stuff that Knobs was
Oh
supposedly
yeah,
there
he
for.
drug him through the mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had a big feud before that, and then I never heard nothing else about it. But it got to Hogan, that's for sure. But
He
like I
said
said,
Hogan and
I know
Linda were
both of them. And
swingers.
huh?
He also said Hogan and Linda were swingers.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't that I don't believe because I met his wife. But I don't know. I'm not in their personal life like that. But for somebody to say that, that's a pretty heavy statement.
If fans want to contact you about your wrestling school or anything like that, is there a way that they could reach out to you?
Yeah, I got a number 214-861-0965.